think we already defined the word science, so we don't need to go there again. Do we? No, I'm pretty sure we don't. My house is kind of full of all sorts of scientific equipment, testing equipment, Geiger counter, lots of spools of copper wire of various gauges. I'm an inventor. Did I say inventor? I'm going to edit that. I'm going to edit that out of this video. I said inventor. Man, I didn't go to bed last night till 5 a.m. Inventor. Tinker around. Man, that was pretty funny. I like that. Make sure to edit that out of this video. I'm embarrassed. That's okay. I'll leave it in. Maybe make people laugh. Inventor. This is what happens, actually, when you think about 10 things at once. And you shouldn't do that when making a video. Yeah. I've only, out of 7,200 videos, I've only ever edited like 3 or 4. Yeah. That's true, by the way. I'll leave that in, though. It'll make people laugh. We don't need to define the word scientist. I want to read a little passage. It's a quote from Nikola Tesla. This is a quote from 1934. Scientists from Franklin to Morse were clear thinkers and did not produce erroneous theories. The scientists of today, and this is basically 100 years ago, almost, 90 what, 2 or 3 years ago. The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experimentation, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relationship to reality. Brilliant quote from Nikola Tesla. Humans are really fond of this horrible thing called reification, specifically concept reification. There are 11 things. There's actually a lot more than 11. There's 10 fundamentally. 11 things I like to go over that don't actually exist. Yeah? Concept reification. Now, things that do exist, like ice, water, and steam, these are all just different water. Now, they're different states of water due to pressure and temperature. Human beings give them a different name for sake of clarity and communication. Instead of saying water, I would say ice to someone, and that way someone would hear ice and they know it's cold, hard water, right? Yeah, communication purposes. The other thing is called concept reification. And these are the things that all these prestigious, I have a PhD in theoretical physics, Leonard Susskind, the great guy that everybody looks up to. He is, by the way, everybody should watch this video. I've said it before. On YouTube. His name is Richard Feynman. Call him Tricky Dicky. He's not around anymore. And it's called, just type in a YouTube search. The video, there's like 1,000 copies of this video. And it's like 7 minutes long. And just type in Feynman explains magnetism. This is the guy all these people in academia look up to. And he was really cool. He had 1,000 charisma points because he actually crossed his legs very perfectly. He folded them like origami when he sat in a chair. You can see that. He's given many, many lectures when he was at college. Folded his legs like origami. He would have a lecture to his college students who thought he was cool because he wore like a slick suit that fitted perfectly, and he'd sit up there on stage, yeah, blowing little smoke rings, and then he'd reach down and he'd pick up his margarita or his shot of tequila or whatever sort of distilled beverage. You can confirm this, it's all over the internet. And people, I mean, the college kids thought he was cool. He was the coolest professor in the world. Feynman. Anyway, it's called Feynman Explains Magnetism. It's a 7-minute video, roughly. And he's asked what magnetism is, and he squirms and wiggles in his chair like a frog in a hot plate. And the interviewer is not trying to put him on the spot. He's like, well, what is this thing, magnetism? And he's, well, I could explain it to you, but, you know, it's too complicated for you to understand. And then he makes an analogy of an old woman slipping on the ice, which is completely laughable, ridiculous, absurd, and just a face palmer, like, oh God, did this really prestigious so-called scientist just talk about an old woman slipping on the ice when asked about what An intelligent answer would have been, of course, we don't know. I'm curious myself. I have a burning desire to know. So these are the people we're actually dealing with, and they reify concepts of things that don't actually exist. I like to go over 11 of these. There's really only 10 fundamental ones. It's space, shadow, times, waves, photons, duality, quantum, emptiness. Well, I go over to all the words. And I've gone over these words in various different videos and talking about space, of course, does not exist. is a concept reification between masses and magnitudes. Space, of course, is the after effect of a divergent magnetic field. It doesn't have any properties. Now, however, general relativity says that space is a thing that is bent. It's kind of like a fabric of the universe, according to them, and it's completely ridiculous. This is the one thing Nikola Tesla railed against the relativists and Einstein about, that you could bend space and time. Tesla said specifically, space has no properties. I refuse to subscribe to the view that in the presence of other bodies, that space is warped or bent. I forget what specific word Tesla used. But Tesla, of course, is accurate. Space is not a thing at all. It's the absence of a thing. And I've made many videos on space. Of course, it's a negative image of infinity. It is the negative image of the ether. It is the antinomy of the ether. It's the after effect of a divergent magnetic field, i.e. the three-dimensional force vector of the toroidal geometry of the specific field that we call magnetism, which of course is a dielectric field, loss of energy or inertia, manifesting the toroidal field geometry of magnetism. And its after effect, i.e. the volume of the balloon, is space. Yeah? It's literally the negative image of infinity regarding inertia or the ether. Space is not a thing. It doesn't have properties. Space is not a thing. It's a concept that scientists and other people have reified. And of course, we've all grown up with this delusion from watching science fiction movies and whatnot. I made countless videos on this as well, that being time. Time is a measure of magnitudes. There's no such thing as time. Time is not a thing. We no more bend space than we bend time, but we've watched thousands of science fiction movies growing up, Star Trek, Star Wars, all that other garbage, which of course is fantasy. It's Hollywood garbage. However, it is entertaining to watch, but time is not a thing. Every ancient culture said time is the number 4. Yeah, there's a long reason of explanation behind that, but that's the only number missing from the first 5 digits of the Fibonacci sequence is 4. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. 4 is missing. Time is a measure, is not a thing. A measure is not a thing. Yeah. There's no such thing as inches. There's no such thing as seconds. It's time again, once we talk about seconds. An inch is a concept human beings, of course, created to measure things, foot, miles, kilometers, so on and so forth. Time is not a thing of natura naturans, i.e. Mother Nature. So, time. Shadow is not a thing either. We all suffer the idea, and of course shadow is a noun in the dictionary, but a shadow is an absence of light. Posterior attribute reification, the absence of something is something. Say, of course I'm fat, I would never really be truly starving of hunger, right? But to say that, I'm hungry, I haven't eaten in 3 days, which I've never had happen actually. But that's not a thing. That's an absence of something. Yeah, but, if you're in a shadow, you feel cold, and therefore it is something. No, you're not. That's an error of mental concept reification. Well, if I stand in a shadow, I feel cold versus the light. Therefore, a shadow is something. If I feel super hungry because I haven't eaten in 2 or 3 days, because I'm lost in the desert, I feel sick because I'm super hungry. Hunger is a thing. Well, it's not a thing at all. It's the absence of something. We reify the absence of something that we're used to, like a shadow or hunger, for example. Of course, there are many examples of this. The other one, this is my favorite one, kind of like these waving flames on their desktop computer here, is waves. Scientists and these theoretical physicists, they love to talk about waves and energy. They can't define the word energy. They can't define the word field. They literally cannot. Put them on the spot. What's a field? Lines of force. Force? What? Lines? Lines? Lines are not a thing. Lines are another attributional description of actually constructive and destructive interference between fields. But they reify these things that don't exist. Waves are not things. There's no such thing as a wave. A wave is not what a thing is. A wave is what a thing does. Yes? It is the activity. No one would stupidly say that they saw happiness going down the street. I saw happiness. Who did you see was happy? No. I saw happiness itself. Like, what? Are you crazy? Yeah, I saw happiness. Happiness is an attribute of someone, right? Somebody was happy. We all know this. And yet these scientists with these PhDs, they think they're so smart. And other people, they're smart, they got PhD. Why would I listen to a fat, bald, tattooed nobody on the internet? It's like, you don't have to listen to me, but you have to acknowledge that what I say is irrefutable, undeniable, and extremely logical. There are no such thing as waves. Waves are not what things are, rather what things do. No one would say they saw happiness or sadness bebopping down the street, because those are attributes of something else. There's no such things as waves. Waves of what? They can't answer those questions. Energy! Field waves! Frequency, we're talking about waves here, wavelength. Yeah, but of what? Energy! Well, you've never defined the word field or energy, so using those words, you can't do it. If you've never defined it, you can't use them. And you can't reify things that don't exist, like waves. Photons. No such thing as a photon. I know exactly where they get the idea of the photon from. The rarefactions and compressions of the coaxial circuit of light. Photons! They don't exist. They absolutely do not exist. There's no such thing as a photon. No such thing. They don't exist. They're not particles at all. I can't call a compression of a coaxial circuit, that of EMR, i.e. light, a photon. Well, here we have a rarefaction, there's no photon there. All of a sudden it reappears, and then it disappears again. And these photons, nothing emits photons. Light is not an emission, it's not a wave, it's not a particle, it's not a duality. There are no dualities in natura, naturans, or nature. There's the next one, duality. Duality implies inherent contradiction. There are no dualities in nature. There's a conjugate field geometry in nature between the magnetic and the dielectric being first, of course. That's the conjugate geometry. We have constructive and destructive interference. There is no such thing as a duality in nature. Nature is dual, has a dual nature. No, nature does not have any dualities in it. Every duality that human beings and these so-called professors and PhD academicians think is a duality is their lack of comprehension upon what they are observing. Correct observations, correct experimentations, correct descriptions do not make correct explanations. Well, this experiment's been duplicated 1,000,000 times. They have accurate descriptions of what's going on. A description is not an explanation. It's not. People don't know that. They don't know that at all. Quantum. Don't you find it interesting this word quantum is never needed or used by the greatest field experts throughout all of it? Tesla, Faraday, Steinmetz, Heaviside, Maxwell. It refers to das Lichtquant, or specifically a quantity. That's the root of the word quantum. Quantity, the smallest countable unit. Well, that's because these people are not scientists or mathematicians. The fundamental religion of math is that you have to count it, otherwise it doesn't matter. If you can't count it, don't care about it. Quantum refers to nothing in nature. There is nothing in nature that we could call quantum. So what about quantum computer? I could call my microwave a quantum heating device, but that doesn't give reification to the word quantum as something substantial. This in nature we could call quantum. That cannot be said of anything in nature. Let me reiterate that because it's so important. There's nothing in nature that anybody could point to that we could say, this is the natural representation of the word we ascribe quantum to. It doesn't exist. Nowhere, no way, no how. Nowhere, no way, no how. It doesn't exist. This is a cultish word created by atomists and mathematicians who call themselves scientists. This is the meaning of the word das Lichtquant, from which we get the word quantum from. Emptiness. Here's another great word, doesn't exist. Emptiness. Emptiness of what? A is empty of X is empty of Y. Shunyata, the ancient Pali word shunyata. There's no such thing as emptiness. Emptiness does not exist. No way, no how. Nature doesn't know what emptiness is because it doesn't exist. Completely foreign concept created by human beings. Emptiness. A lot of people that will do jhanic practices. I've experienced emptiness. You did? Yeah. Who experienced it? I did. So you were in emptiness, right? Yes, I was. Well, you were in it, therefore it wasn't empty. Something must have an attribute or property whereby which you're able to remember it and or acknowledge it. And since emptiness would have neither property nor attribute, nobody could be in it, nor could anybody say they were in it, because It has no property, by definition of this word emptiness, which is wholly unreal. It's like talking about unicorns and leprechaun farts. It doesn't exist. There's another wonderful thing that scientists love to talk about, the chaos. There's another great one. There's near infinite complexity, but chaos doesn't exist in nature. There's something else Mother Nature's never heard of. Another crazy invention of human beings and their radical little minds of things that they don't understand. It's chaos! Chaos cannot exist by definition. There is order to the universe. Some things are nearly infinitely complex, but chaos, of course, cannot exist. The other great one the scientists love to talk about, along with waves, is force. Force of what, by what, and upon what. Force is not a thing. Neither is happiness a thing. You know, I could smile and make someone laugh, make a goofy face and make somebody laugh. Force of what, by what, and upon what. Force is not a thing. They love to talk about waves and force and waves, endlessly. This is how these people talk, too, by the way. And if you've read any of their books, like I have, I read a lot of them. This is how they talk. These are the three words they love to use. Blah, 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 blah. Waves of force, quantum duality. It's quantum duality, force, blah, 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 blah. Force time, wave, quantum duality. Quantum duality, force time, wave. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, it's so funny. I've read so much of their stuff. It just makes my eyes roll. It's like watching comedy, really. Force time waves. We've discovered a new phenomenon in the universe. It was a quantum force wave that came at a time that contained virtual photons. That's my last one. This is not my opinion. This is really funny, by the way. To me, it is anyway. This shows the ignorance of these people, because this is what Nikola Tesla was talking about. He said, today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments. They wander off through equation to equation. They build a structure which has no relationship to reality. Virtual photons. What's going on between two magnets? This is them saying this, not me. Virtual photons, not the input or output of any experiment ever done. It is a brain fart with no basis in reality. It has never been measured. It can't be measured. Virtual photons. It's like talking about virtual unicorn farts. Type in quotation marks on the internet. Virtual photons. You even go to Wikipedia, which of course is a horrible source for anything. What's going on between magnets is the exchange of virtual photons. Well, if you're an atomist, everything's a particle. If you're a hammer, everything's a nail. So these people, the field is a stream of particles. There's recently another YouTuber. He's this fluffy-haired guy that committed treason against the United States, and the FBI incarcerated him for a few years, and then they exiled him. He recently made a video. Someone sent it to me. He said, the ether is just a bunch of particles. It's completely impossible. It's the very antithesis of the definition of the ether, which is non-Cartesian inertia, the original definition of inertia. But it will actually tell you this. Fields are virtual photons. Well, there's no evidence to back this up. There's not even any logic to back it up. They instantaneously created virtual photons. What's going on between magnets? They're like handshaking with each other using virtual photons. Well, that's just insane. It's ludicrous. This concept reification created by people that cannot think clearly, they can't explain anything. They're atomists. Yes. They're radical, illogical theorists. Nothing they say has any basis to common sense, reality, Mother Nature. Nothing. They can't think clearly. Well, he has a PhD in mathematics and theoretical physics. He knows more than you fat, bald, tattooed guy. Empirical knowledge is not wisdom. Nothing they say makes any sense. Well, it doesn't make any sense to you because you can't understand it. You have to have a degree in quantum physics. Well, there's no such thing as quantum in nature. You know, I'm not interested in reification of things that don't exist, like time and waves and photons. Why, he got a degree in quantum wave time duality chaos theory. These are the words that they believe in. Literally, I could make a 4-page article, almost, sticking in a few adverbs here and there, just using these 5 or 6 words that they use all the time. And that's how their papers, their academic papers sound. Well, today we're going to examine the time-wave photon duality within the quantum emptiness chaos vacuum of the force vector of virtual photons. Now, the space shadow time duality that we've observed is it's a new revelation in quantum emptiness. Now, I have 11 words here, and it's essentially all I'm using. And that's how their papers sound. If you want a good laugh, let me continue on just a little bit more. Don't you find that interesting that these 11 things that don't exist at all are the primary words that they use in the religion? It is religion. It's not science. It's not science at all. It's not even logical, and it's certainly not intelligent. Yes, today we've observed a force chaos emptiness of the quantum duality observed in Galaxy X. Now, this new revelation, as observed by Mega Telescope X, which we launched last year, shows us the space-time shadow wave duality of the quantum emptiness of Galaxy X. Now, this chaos force emptiness is emitting out megatons of virtual photons. And these virtual photons in the space void of Galaxy X that we've observed displays the typical shadow-time duality of quantum chaos emptiness. This is exactly how all their papers sound. I only have to use these 11 words to sound exactly like them. And these 11 words are things that don't exist, that Mother Nature has never heard of. Mic drop. Boom.